Hello, this is Meghnad and you're watching Sansad Watch, where we tell you what the leaders you elected have been doing for you. It's week 3 of the second half of the budget session and here are the highlights. Discussions on the budget for upcoming year came to an end as the Rajya Sabha passed the appropriation bill and the finance bill. Disruptions continued in Lok Sabha as fuel prices were hiked 9 times in 10 days. On Friday, the opposition MPs staged a walkout. Rajya Sabha saw multiple adjournments as opposition MPs demanded a discussion on fuel price hike and the call for Bharat Bandh. The legislative business has resumed in Parliament. 3 bills were introduced and 5 were passed last week. The Lok Sabha cleared the Constitution Scheduled Tribes Orders Amendment Bill, the Chartered Accountants and Cost and Works Accountants and Company Secretaries Amendment Bill, the Delhi Municipal Corporation Amendment Bill, and the Constitution Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribes Orders Second Amendment Bill. The last bill was also passed by the Rajya Sabha. The Lok Sabha took up the matter of climate change and the need to promote sports in India for discussion. A total of 93 MPs participated. And finally, the Parliament Secretariat and Prime Minister Modi bid farewell to 72 Rajya Sabha members who will be retiring from the House between March and July this year. If there is one thing we know about Modi ji, it is that he is known for his goodbyes. There have been some sadly intense ones.
Sorry. उस रात को एयरपोर्ट से
Some enthusiastic ones.
Two hours later.
Some awkward ones.
चलिए पुडुचेरी को वणक्कम.
And some embarrassing ones.
दोस्ती बनी रहे, अपनी दोस्ती बनी रहे यार. You came here, I'm happy and thankful to you for this.
So while Congress MPs were saying bye-bye to cylinders and motorcycles, so while Congress was doing that, Prime Minister Modi said goodbye to 72 members of Rajya Sabha whose tenures are ending this session. Right, so let's talk about what is happening here. Rajya Sabha presently has 245 members, out of which 72 or 1/3 of the total members would be retiring at the end of this session. This includes heavyweights like Congress leader Jairam Ramesh, P. Chidambaram and A.K. Antony, BJP leaders such as Subramaniam Swamy, Mukhtar Abbas Naqvi, Piyush Goyal and Nirmala Sitharaman, and 7 members who were nominated by the President, including journalist Swapan Das Gupta and MC Mary Kom. This is a good time to talk about the composition of Rajya Sabha and a little bit about the elections. How are they conducted? Why should you care about it? And how the BJP is slowly increasing its influence in the upper house. First, some history. Why does this house exist in the first place? Back in 1918, there was a Montagu-Chelmsford committee. And yes, it is as Gora as it sounds. They issued a report suggesting that there should be another house other than the Lok Sabha which should be involved in lawmaking. Back then, it was proposed to create a Council of States. The Government of India Act 1919 provided for the creation of a second chamber of legislature with a restricted franchise. This came into existence in 1921. After independence, our mothers and fathers of the Constituent Assembly decided that India will have a bicameral legislature, which means lawmaking at the central level will be done by a directly elected government and state governments together. India is a vast country with a lot of diversity and the constitution makers realized this. They came to the conclusion that only directed elected members would not truly represent that diversity. So they decided that Indian Parliament would have another house to debate and discuss bills so that no elected government could bulldoze laws in the heat of the moment. Rajya Sabha was born. where the word Rajya refers to the states of our country. The basic idea behind Rajya Sabha is to give representation to the states and to make sure that the federal structure of our democracy remains intact. In short, the Rajya Sabha is a group of indirectly elected wise old people who oversee the elected government and do a revision of their policies. Now, how does this house work? As you know, we have general elections every 5 years to choose members of the Lok Sabha. These are directly elected by you. But Rajya Sabha members are not directly chosen by you. While Lok Sabha is dissolved every 5 years, Rajya Sabha house is continuous and never dissolves. Instead, members have a 6-year term and every 2 years, 1/3 of them retire. So, at any given time, even if the government falls and Lok Sabha dissolves, there would always be a flock of lawmakers up top who will not let the country go rudderless. One house is always functional, the Rajya Sabha. Now, since we don't directly elect Rajya Sabha members, how do elections work? Okay, brace yourself because काफी convoluted, but मैं है ना. Each of our states has a fixed number of seats in Rajya Sabha. Like Uttar Pradesh has 31, Maharashtra has 19, and smaller states like Manipur and Sikkim have 1 each. This is based on the population of states. Whenever members from any of the states retire, members of the Legislative Assembly or MLAs of that state meet up to vote for new members. Just like traditional elections, parties field candidates and MLAs vote for them. But to make sure that there is true representation of the assembly in the upper house, voting is carried out through something called single transferable vote. Which means instead of choosing one person to send to parliament, the members have to rank the candidates as per their preference. This is so that the number of seats end up being the direct reflection of the state assembly. For instance, if a state has 3 Rajya Sabha seats and political party A has 2/3 majority in the assembly, then based on preference voting, 2 seats will go to the majority party A and 1 will go to the opposition. The number of seats a party gets is directly proportional to the strength in the state assembly. That's how all of these seats get filled. Right, so why should all of this matter to you? Simply put, Rajya Sabha plays a significant role in keeping the government in check. When bills are passed in Lok Sabha, they go to the Rajya Sabha. So if one party has majority in the Lok Sabha but does not have one in Rajya Sabha, they have to convince the parties that are in power in the states to let them clear bills in the upper house. The leaders of those parties issue whips and the representative members in Rajya Sabha vote accordingly. So states get an automatic say in lawmaking. Last week, Chairman of Rajya Sabha Venkaiah Naidu pointed out that 35% of the functional time of the House was lost due to disruptions by the opposition, which means the opposition parties are putting up quite a fight in the upper house against the government. Dear viewers, this is what keeping a check on the majority looks like. States get a say in lawmaking, and whenever a majority party in Lok Sabha makes moves that are aggressive and anti-people, the members oppose it, just like it is happening with fuel prices right now. Okay, now let me tell you about the political composition of Rajya Sabha. In 2019, BJP swept the general elections and got a clear majority in the Lok Sabha. But in the same year, BJP had 76 seats in the Rajya Sabha. That comes to 31% of the total strength, which is not a majority. The seat share of the entire NDA alliance in the upper house stood at 121, which was 2 less than the majority mark of 123. Later, Shiv Sena and Shiromani Akali Dal broke away in 2020 and the NDA seat tally further reduced by 6 and came down to 115. So Rajya Sabha was fully capable of scrutinizing and stalling legislations passed by the Lok Sabha. The situation is slowly changing in favor of BJP though. After winning a series of assembly elections, right now BJP has bumped up its seat tally from 76 to 100. This is the first time since 1990 that a single party has gotten 100 seats in the Rajya Sabha. As of now, the NDA is at 120 seats in the upper house. So, 1/3 of the house is retiring at the end of this session and the composition of Rajya Sabha will change after elections are held for the seats that are going to be vacant. By the end of this year, the composition of the upper house will yet again change and the coming assembly elections at the end of this year will also play a big role. We need to keep a watch. Oh, by the way, as a side note, good old Harbhajan Singh is going to be a parliamentarian. Let's hope that unlike Sachin Tendulkar, he at least shows up in parliament and spins his speeches. The representation of the Aam Aadmi Party is set to rise from 3 seats to 8 as their party candidates won all 5 Rajya Sabha seats in Punjab unopposed. AAP is now the 6th largest party in the upper house by strength. Kafi interesting. Moving on to questions of the week. MP Pravesh Sahib Singh Verma asked whether the government has any data on the number of child beggars in the country. The government responded saying that 3,808 children are involved in begging as per data uploaded on the National Commission for Protection of Child Rights portal as of March 2022. However, the government further went on to say that as per an independent survey carried out by the government of NCT of Delhi, 4,871 children are engaged in the act of begging in Delhi. Huh? Okay, wait. So in a country there are 3,800 child beggars, but in the national capital of the same country there are 4,800 child beggars. 3,800 is greater than 4,800? Who puts this data? Na sir, na pair, na greater than less than. Yeah. क्या हो क्या रहा है यहाँ पे?
कुछ भी
Next question comes from MP Bajruddin Ajmal, who asked about the amount allocated by the government of India to waive off loans taken by farmers in the past 5 years. The Ministry of Finance responded saying that no farm loan waiver scheme has been implemented by the government in the past 5 years. एक second. Then what was all of this about?
खेती से जुड़े अनेक छोटे छोटे खर्च को पूरा करने के लिए ही भारतीय जनता पार्टी एनडीए की सरकार ने प्रधानमंत्री किसान सम्मान योजना शुरू की है.
But wait, editor, can you show us the date? April 2019, election time. फिर तो कुछ भी पे लो, चलता है. Anyway, in the answer the government attached is the long list of steps taken by them to reduce the debt burden of farmers. In essence, no direct waiver has been given to them, but kuch to kiya hai. That's all I have for you in this week's Sansad Watch. Listen, if you are living in one of these states that has Rajya Sabha elections coming up, you really should share this episode with friends and family who also live in states where Rajya Sabha elections are coming up. Share this episode because if you want to make Parliament great again, you need to watch it first. See you next week. Thank you so much guys for watching this episode of Sansad Watch. I hope you liked it. We have been wanting to deal with the topic of Rajya Sabha for a while. I know there were a bunch of bills that were passed last week in some houses. Some of them passed in both houses. But we will be doing a detailed episode on a few bills this week. Parliament is ending this week, but we will continue and come back to you with those episodes. Please continue supporting us if you like our work, support News Laundry and pay to keep news free. And also, Karare Chane Le Lo, buy our merch.
The subscription model is something that keeps News Laundry afloat, but we need hundreds of thousands of people to completely transform the news ecosystem. So you pay for news, so it serves you. So click on the link with this video, subscribe to News Laundry and pay to keep news free और गर्व से कहो मेरे खर्च पर आजाद है खबरें.